Every successful person got there by going through tough times. Success is a hard-ass teacher who likes to knock you around along that journey. You know, it takes real guts to not give up and keep going. We'll hear stories about failures and how these leaders flip the script to create success. I'm John Schultz. Join me and let's discover how success is never really overnight. So welcome to the John Schultz podcast. We have an amazing guest today and a friend. So I'm excited to have Rick Rieder on. I'm going to give you a little introduction. This could go on forever, so I'm going to cut it short. He's done so many great things. But Rick is the Chief Investment Officer of Global Fixed Income and Managing Director of BlackRock, Head of Fundamental Fixed Income Business and the Head of Global Allocation Investment Team. Roughly responsible for $2.4 trillion. That's a big number and a lot of responsibility. Former president and chief executive of R3 Capital Partners, formerly of Lehman Brothers, and ultimately becoming head of the firm's global principal strategies. What I love about Rick is he's altruistic and cares about people and growth of others. So he's chairman and president of the Board of Education for North Star Academy, and also on the BlackRock Foundation. And the North Star Academy is in Newark, and we're going to discuss that. Alumni of Emory University and Wharton School of Business. So welcome, Rick.
Thanks, John. Thanks for doing this. I'm excited to do this with you.
Yeah, this is going to be great. It's terrific. Love having you on. So, this podcast is all about the myth of overnight success. You have a terrific story. I always like to start, when you were a kid growing up, first of all, how would your parents describe you?
I would say I was motivationally challenged. I don't know, John. I mean, I had a crazy, growing up, I loved sports and I was a gym rat, and I wasn't a great athlete, but I loved hanging out in the gym, and I was doing okay in school, and then all of us, as I got into high school, I never had issues, but I just didn't find school that interesting after a while. So I'd say motivationally challenged, but I enjoyed having a good time. But I definitely, I would say, early on I was pretty directionless, and my parents always described me as a good kid. I never really got into any serious trouble, but I definitely didn't have any direction in terms of where I wanted to go. I just know I enjoyed hanging around and playing sports and watching sports. And I didn't really know where I was going to go with it, to be honest.
So did you have any inclination? What did you want to be when you grew up? I mean, obviously we all have these sports, things that we want to do, or movie star, So
yeah.
what got you interested in,
Movie star was in the equation, but the only thing, I remember when I was doing these summer jobs, and I knew I loved, I was a hard worker. I knew, even though in school I wasn't motivated at all, but I knew, I loved to work and I loved to make money in the summers. And I had a bunch of jobs, from washing cars to working at supermarkets. And I got a job at a financial institution, doing some pretty menial stuff. And then I actually started, I bought a stock when I was 12 or 13 years old. And it was because I was bowling, and I bought it. I'll never forget. It was AMF, and I just started following. It actually did okay, and that got me a little bit interested. But still pretty early on. So there was, I didn't really have any sense early on. And by the way, the only classes that I did did well at in high school was literally I took an accounting class. I thought, wow, that sunk in. Whereas I have to say I couldn't, after algebra, and I'm pretty good with numbers. But after algebra, geometry didn't really sink in to me. Calculus, sort of nebulous for me in terms of interest. But I knew I was really good with numbers and putting numbers together quickly. So, but I literally didn't know where I was going to go with it.
It's so interesting. So you went bowling, and then you said, you know what, let me look into this a little more. So you were intrigued by that. That's a little bit like what Warren Buffett says, right? Do what you know and learn about it, which you did. Okay. So obviously that was you had some inclination that type of, job, career could be, in the cards. So after you graduated, how did you even think about your first job? School didn't interest you. You sort of went and did some investing when you were younger.
So
How'd you flow?
So John, I have this crazy, I think it's an interesting story, a crazy story that I haven't told a lot of people, that I had I spent 2 years, I went out of high school to Hobart College, and I was taking classes in sociology and philosophy, history of Rome. And I didn't enjoy any of it. I mean, I didn't really figure it out. And I'll never forget my second trimester of my freshman year. I was on social and academic probation because I didn't care. And I'll never forget, I got home one night after my grades came, and I thought my dad is going to have an issue. And I went, I'll never forget this. I went, I lived by the back. There was a golf course behind our house, and I went and I sat on a rock literally for 4 hours, and I thought about, I got to do something in my life. Like my life, I gained weight because I was drinking beer at night.
Okay.
I said, I got to do something in my life. And then all of a sudden, like something, I don't know, John, something kicked in, and I started to think, and I literally sat there for 4 hours. And I don't know if it was the motivation, my dad's going to kill me when he sees my grades. And I thought I better shift things around, and I'm going nowhere. And there was that day that I ended up transferring. I worked harder to get into Emory, and I went into business school. And all of a sudden, talk about motivation in your life. Like all of a sudden these classes, versus I didn't understand psychology at all. But these classes, I was taking finance and marketing and management, and it came easier to me. And both my parents were entrepreneurs, and all of a sudden, you become motivated. And I ended up, doing well. I won all the finance awards. I came in third in the business school. By the way, my wife came in first, which you'll appreciate. So Mr. Fink should have hired my wife because
there you go. Love that.
But but all of a sudden, like the ball starts rolling downhill when it was like that one day, and I said, I got to change. And then I got in to start taking business classes. And then it's amazing how something that motivates you, you just want to take it to the next level, And that was the big thing for me. And then, I got into finance. I worked for a commercial bank called SunTrust in Atlanta. That's now Truist, I guess. And I went to Wharton for my MBA. And again, all these finance classes, management classes, marketing made sense to me. So, but it's amazing how there was like one node in my life that like all of a sudden there was this trigger. And by the way, that after getting it, I said, I got to get in shape, and like it changed your whole life. But I don't know why. I think it was my grades being so bad was this catalyzing event in my life that was really big for me.
Well, maybe you were just tired of not knowing.
Yeah.
You could have gone down two paths that day, right? You could have went the other way, which meant sort of the abyss, totally. And you picked the right path, but it took you to go down, I guess, to your almost lowest to actually decide that you wanted to move forward and be something with yourself, which is good, right? And here you are today. So, okay, you made that move, you did well at Emory. All of a sudden, you have this passion, numbers, finance, which you did have that. You just didn't really know you had that until you wanted to, believe it yourself, right? So I guess you started your first job at E.F. Hutton, or what was that?
So it's a funny thing. So I was graduating Wharton, and I was about to take a job as it was Chemical Bank, which became J.P. Morgan, and as I was going to be a strategist. So similar at SunTrust, I was doing bank analysis, peer group analysis, M&A analysis, and I was going to go join Chemical Bank to be to do strategy for the bank. And I knew finance pretty well, and I literally accepted the job. And I always tell my kids, when you commit to something, you've got to fulfill it. And the first time I didn't, and I went to because somebody at E.F. Hutton, who ran the training program, said, you love sports, you love dynamic things, like why wouldn't you consider trading? And I'll never forget, I called my dad and I said, Dad, I'm thinking about going into trading. He said, what are you talking about? That's not a job, that's a hobby. And I said, no, I think I can. He said, it's not a career, I should say, and it's a hobby. And I said, Dad, I'd like to give it a shot because I know I can go back into finance and I can go back into strategy. And anyway, I did it. And that woman, I literally have never gotten to thank her, but she changed my life because I traded for a number of years, and taught me about financial assets and valuations, et cetera. But I mean, literally, I mean, I don't know where I've been. I'm sure I've been fine. Hopefully I've been fine doing strategy and corporate finance. But yeah.
Well, you need action, right? I mean, this person, I mean, I don't know how well they knew you, but like it's amazing how that one person, that one statement could just push you in a direction and why mentoring and having mentors is so important, right? Because sometimes you can't see clearly about yourself as well as someone else can see you.
I always say that. I always say it all the time. People say, "But you appreciate in playing golf." Is that, like, well, your swing better than anybody, but it's actually, you don't see your own swing. And somebody else who can just visualize it, even if they're not a great golfer, but it's the same thing as somebody who got in, understood my psyche a bit and said, gosh, why don't you take a chance and ski your road? And I said, you know what, I want to give it a shot. And anyway, she changed my life. I literally never got a chance to thank her. Maybe she watched the podcast show.
And now maybe it's time to go do that. Now that we brought that all the way back up in your present time right now. So that's good. So, all right. So you started doing it and, obviously you had passion. So, and, I know you as a person, you're not 100% person, you're 150% person. So, so the career starts, you start trading and doing, and how did it grow from there? Like what were your sort of ups, downs, what made you stay doing it since you sort of, had that background of not really staying involved?
So I had an unbelievable mentor. He's one of my best friends today. I got a gentleman named Bart McDade, and he hired me and another gentleman who also has become a good friend of mine. And they taught me how to trade. I was trading Yankee bonds, which are international bonds denominated in dollars. And they trained me. I made a couple of big mistakes early in my career, and they helped me get out of it. And I learned. I mean, it developed a philosophy early on about, you realize, we should talk about this, that when you're trading and now investing, that you always got to think about, you can't hit the down button in too much loss. And they really taught me about managing your risk, thinking about when you're wrong, get out quickly, and then when you happen to get it right, which is not always the case for me, then you got to make sure you're really positioned that way. And that was, I'll never forget that. And I learned, I'll tell you, being on the trading, going from trading to I ran a hedge fund to investing, for BlackRock, trading was really helpful for me because I got to understand how clients, there's all sorts of different clients who manage their risk differently and invest differently. And I got to learn a bit about, gosh, I'd love to do that piece, or they're really good at how they think about credit or mortgages or equities. And it was really, really helpful for me to start on the sell side and, get to interface with so many people. And then, when you think about what assets do you really want to own as an investor, that was a really great training for me. And, I got super lucky, John, like a lot of people, like, I mean, it's just crazy fortunate. In fact, I got my job, and when E.F. Hutton was taken over by Lehman Brothers, and somebody quit the day I was getting placed in the training program, and they hadn't taken somebody in the corporate bond business where I started for 7 years. And the person that day, and I got you talking, and I'll never forget, I scrambled and I said to the head of the business, that person just left, can I get a seat? And crazy lucky, and I worked for two of the best people that anybody could ever work for. And I've watched, friends of mine that graduated Wharton simultaneously and weren't trained or didn't get the right, think about business the right way or culture the right way, or then bounced all over the place. So I just got crazy lucky.
Well, it's like, what's so interesting, there was no real roadmap, right? Like, you just, why you're such a good trader, it seems you're constantly listening to your intuition. Totally. A lot of people don't. You listen to that woman, right? You didn't have to. You listened to, your two mentors in ways. You went and did ask that question, which a lot of people don't do. Yeah. So, and I hear you say too a lot, it's like, make a little bit of money a lot of times. So let's talk about that, because at the end of the day, you're managing a huge amount of money. It's important that, you have a plan to keep it stable, right? So why is that your motto?
So I'd say two things. First of all, on your last question. So I've learned intuition is really important, but I also think, like, I spend maybe too many hours preparing. Like, I think people don't prepare enough, and they think about whether you're trading or investing. like to make that decision a split second when you see a piece of news, it's all about, did you prepare for it? And so I do a crazy amount of work, including on the weekends, preparing and thinking about things. So that, I don't know, I just don't think.
Does that mean like we all have to wake up at 3:45 in the morning like you do? I mean, like when I heard about this, I was like, you really don't sleep.
I don't.
How do you think clearly? If you, like, how do you do it?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I've had this thesis. I don't really believe in it, and I think there's a lot to do in life, and so I don't. I don't know. I have plenty of energy, and I feel like there's so much to do in life. So I just, I'd always think about, what's the next thing they should be thinking about? What's the next thing to do? And so, no, I just keep going. But
I know you have a lot of energy because, on the golf course and just all the other things that we do and hang out with each other, you're always ready to do something, which I love.
Yeah. What was that?
So,
what was the question? I missed it. What was the question? Because I started.
Well, the question that I think is very interesting for you to answer is make
a little bit of money a lot of times.
A little bit of money a lot of the time, right? Because most when you think of Wall Street, it's like big bets, huge bets, like.
So John, can I tell this crazy story? So I'll never forget at Wharton, I learned a ton about really sophisticated asset liability management, weighted average cost of capital, efficiency of your balance sheet. I learned so many incredible things. The one thing that taught me the most about, and I took it from trading, investing, I'll never forget it. A gentleman who ran a CEO of a big casino came in. He said, "How do you think we make money in casinos?" And I said, "Well, the odds are in your favor." And he said, "Actually, the odds are only a couple percent in our favor." He said, that's not the answer. All those slot machines that make good money on. He said, what happens is people come to the casino and they bring $200 with them. And when they lose the 200, they leave. And so you think about how things oscillate. You're up, you're down. When you're up, you're gonna pray you're gonna make more. But then you ultimately, if you particularly there for a long time, you ultimately hit the down 200 and you leave. That has stayed with me my entire career. And I've always thought, I cannot hit that down 200. And so I've always thought like there's a better way because markets oscillate up and down.
Yeah.
And I've always thought if I can do enough research, analysis, tilt the odds in my favor, and we have amazing teams around the world. And if we're really working hard towards thinking about what's the regime we're operating in, where should interest rates be, where does the bottom part of the stack and equities, do it a billion times like you're running a casino. If you tilt the odds in your favor, just keep doing it over and over and over again, and you create what is a really stable franchise. And that you don't have, you could be really right on your interest rate call, and all of a sudden there's a war. And like, how did that happen? And then all of a sudden you've blown up and you've hit the metaphorical down 200.
Yeah.
And I don't ever want that to happen. So I always think about, I'd rather have particularly fixed income equity, which is convex to the downside. Equities, you have convexity to the upside. So I always think about, gosh, I'd rather do it a billion times. We have such great resources around the world and great research. And so that's been my philosophy since I've been investing. And it just creates stable returns, optimize your return per unit of volatility, and do it, and just try to do it over and over again. And I think clients, knowing hopefully they sleep well at night, they were going to generate, probably in a year, we're not going to be the absolute best performer, but over, hopefully over 5 years, 10 years, you've done it enough times that you're going to be, the top.
Well, it's like a sports analogy, like, baseball, hit singles and doubles and the home runs will come, they'll come, and like be steady and, longevity will be in your favor at that point. And I think with investing, it's the right motto, right? Nothing happens. I mean, just with what we're looking at now, everything that we thought didn't make sense is not making sense right now. I mean, if you look at just what's going on with all the different asset classes and just our, whole economy.
By the way, think about the analogy of baseball. It's pretty incredible, right? If you have a series of home run hitters and they go cold for a period, it's over. Like, I'm really a believer in consistency, and you want to have something that is durable, and it's just over and over again. And you get through, and hopefully you get the big picture right more often than not, and then you position accordingly. And then you're not swinging for the fence or chasing momentum, which so many people in the industry do.
Yeah, and you take your shots. Like Michael Jordan probably took more shots than anyone, but he also missed more shots, right? So, but you got to be in the game and you got to keep rolling. All right. So you had this amazing career at Lehman. I thought was interesting. You had a big test when long-term capital management sort of turned on its head, and you got in there and turned that around. How did that feel to have such weight on your, because listen, at the end of the day, you have a lot of weight now. You were younger then. To get yourself through a market, a cycle, with all that pressure, like how did that feel? How'd you get through it?
So I don't know, maybe not. I don't know. Maybe it still wears on me. But this funny thing, when you think about long-term capital, John, the thing was pretty incredible. It was a book when Genius Failed, I think. They're the smartest people. I mean, they were unbelievable. I knew a bunch of them, and like crazy smart people, arguably the smartest people in the industry. And one thing I've learned from that, I say this all the time in investing: we're not in the business of being right. We're in the business of generating return. That is a really different dynamic. And
Can you break that down? Because that's it. That's very interesting.
Yeah. So, with long-term capital, you think about how brilliant they were, smarter than anybody. But what happens is, if you're convinced you're right, you take on too much leverage, you take on too much risk. And I would bet that they were right on most of the times. And in fact, the times that they actually had got carted out, it's because the world doesn't think you're right. And or the world thinks you're in a bad position and you have to get out of it. And so I'm always a believer, like your timing, and it's not, we may get the inflation call right, or we may get the growth call right, but it's really about figuring out when others believe you're going to be right, because you enter an investment hopefully at the right time, and then you think about what's your exit strategy, and you're anticipating not necessarily that you're right a year hence, but maybe in 3 to 6 months people start to believe you're right. And so it's really anticipating what is your entry, what is your exit, what's the convexity of that along the way. And it's like, you may ultimately be right, but if it's a year from now and you've lost a lot of money in the interim because people don't think you're right, it doesn't matter. And I've always said this before, that the smartest people, the geniuses that are out there, which I'm not one of them, that they don't necessarily make great investors. In fact, I've worked with a number of them that I thought were triple my IQ, but if they're convinced and they get too bought into their thesis, you can lose a lot of money quickly. And so I've always believed that it's really just anticipating where others think you're going to be, or think the world is going to be, and trying to time that right. And time and technicals are hugely important. And who has, think about, John, better than anybody, in this environment, you think about, where is the leverage? Where is the financing? How fast does the economy decelerate? And by the way, we're not going to know the answers to that for a year or two, but you're trying to interpret what's the data that in 3 months or a month or 2 months or 3 months, that's going to give us those indications. And that's, I think that's what you're playing for. Yeah.
Belief systems are very strong. There was this movie, World War Z, where, it's a zombie movie. I mean, it's not an exact analogy, but, these 10 people would sit in a room and decide the plan, right? How you're going to, create and fight the zombies. And then, or will that happen? And the 11th person is to sit there all year long and prove why you're wrong, right? Someone always has to be there to look at why what you're thinking may not be right. I think that's really smart in investing. I think it's smart in life. Personal decisions, you don't want to live in your own echo chamber, right? So as successful as you get, I think it's actually, you have to be more of a listener and be willing to take information that you don't necessarily agree with, want to hear, or believe. Do you agree with that? Or
I couldn't agree more. I have to say, even when I was looking at the title of the podcast, like, I never really believe I've succeeded or that I'm successful or what have you. And I didn't think that motivates you. I always think I'm going to get fired. And I felt that my whole career. Like, I always feel like you haven't succeeded, you haven't, and that, you got to, even though, you get promoted,
right?
You still got to do it every day. And clients, quite frankly, don't care about what you did 2 years ago or what you do. And all they care about is you generate a return from it. And I always think, like, once you think you've succeeded, you're done. You are done.
Well, I was funny. I was talking to Noah on the podcast today before you came on, and I'm like, I'm nervous before every podcast. Like, I feel the minute you think you have it, you're done. Yeah. So I think successful people just always have this inner, voice that says, be better. Don't take yourself too seriously. when it turns, you got to have enough fortitude to get through, but like always know that you got to be thinking and moving, right? So
can I tell you, it's funny when I talk with the people I think are, and I've been honored that are the greatest investors I've ever seen that I've become friendly with. I call them all the time and I say, what do you think here? And they say, and invariably they say, I don't know. They always start with, I don't know. But you talk to somebody who's not taking risk or is not investing, and they'll say, oh, the market's going to do this. I'm like, okay. But it's the people that are the best investors. And every time I call them, they say this, they start with the same thing. I don't know. But, then you start to triangulate towards what they believe. And but
you got to take a view, right? You have to you listen, but you got to take a view. Otherwise, you do nothing.
That's the humility alongside of it. And
yes, 100%.
It is
all right, talking about humility though. So, I heard you're a gold medalist. Like, when you left long term, Lehman, you went to BlackRock, right? That was 2009. Joined BlackRock.
Yeah.
Right. You're working there, big new job. And, your performance was so good, you got promoted, but you were a gold medalist. I guess 3 of your funds were awarded gold medals by Morningstar. So how did that feel after having like all this pressure, to go through what you went through? You're at this new place and finally in your mind, you hit like another milestone.
So, I'm super proud of it. That being said, they don't give it to you for life. And, it's not a lifetime achievement award. It's your gold medal for as long as you keep the returns. So, we're, knock wood, we've been, we're keeping it. And, but, like every day you got to keep doing it. But I'm super proud of it. I mean, you compete in this industry and, you meet people and your competitors and like, boy, it's not the people that have been around for a long time that are your competitors. It's not by accident. They're pretty good. And so, to achieve, gold medal in our funds. And so I forget this, it's a very small percentage. I get that. We've hit it in a few funds. But I know I'm super proud of it because I know how tough the competition is and how smart they are. And, but like I say, tomorrow, if we don't do it right, or next week or 6 months from now, you lose those things. So we got to keep pressing ahead of, but I'm super, that's one of the biggest things I'm most proud of, because it takes it, by the way, they award those things over a number of years. And so you can knock the lights out 1 year. And also it's based on your volatility as well. So if you happen to knock the lights out and the next year you didn't, or you did okay, it's so we just got to keep our volatility in a reasonable level and just optimize your return relative to that. But no, it's been I'm super proud of achieving.
Awesome.
It's not
nothing good. Proud. It's terrific.
The team. Like, we've assembled. I'd say one of the things in life I've learned, like I know you have, is the good people. You work with good people and you hire right. And I've gotten super lucky, and the partners that I've hired here have I've learned over the years, when you hire people, like, you don't like, oh, we just lost somebody we need to hire for this job. I've gotten super lucky, and I've hired people that I know are great, and then we meander their way into the right job. And I think the success of these funds is we've hired a bunch of really good people.
Well, you see that they have something in them, right? I mean, it's like the Willy Wonka movie when when he saw the contestants and Charlie won, right? Because there was something in him that was different. And I think that's a good, that's what a leader does, right? And you're leading a huge group and team, so it wouldn't be performing as well if you didn't have that trait.
But I tell you, John, I learned from failing. I've hired, like, we lost a mortgage trader, or we lost someone in the we put out a job rec and we hired somebody to go find somebody, and I failed so many times at doing that. And then now I've evolved. And by the way, you still have to, there are roles you have to fill. I don't mean that we don't do it, but it's like, if I know somebody, or I've worked with somebody, or I know they're great at their culture is right, the way they think about the world is right, and they're super talented, and quite frankly, I found the desire to succeed and perform well, then you hire them, and then you figure out over time, and I've probably put them in the wrong spot initially, and then you figure out where they should go. That's been like way more successful for me.
Yeah, it's terrific. And listen, you're still here, right? You got to, I mean, no matter what, it's been a long road, and you're still growing and moving forward. So some people might say, look at you as like maniacal, right? I read something that, maniacal Rick and Larry Fink agrees. But so how has that served you? Because, you get up at 3:45 in the morning, like you have energy more than most people I know. Is that the attitude that you think you need to be successful, or like, does it serve you in all places? Like what have you learned through that?
So, by the way, I don't know that my philosophy is the right one, and it fits me in that I've sort of culled down in my life, and maybe, hitting 60 years old, as I've culled down in my life. There's certain things that I enjoy doing. I love being with family and friends, and I love, playing golf. And
Yeah.
my job is, right at the top of the just under family and friends. And then I follow some sports teams, and other than that, that's it. Like, I boiled down that's my life, and I just want to, but I'd like to be good at all those things, not always, but I'd like to be good at all those things. And then, I'm just like, I think in one of those interviews, they said, do you go to the movies? And I said, no, I'm not interested. And then it came out of like, it's so sad he doesn't go to the movies. Like, I don't, I just don't go to the movies. I like it, but but I don't know. I've culled down what I enjoy doing, what I think hopefully I can be successful at, and then everything else I sort of like, I'm just not gonna do it. And
Well,
I don't know.
bar none, you are. People know it. Everyone I talk to about you just loves working with you, and loves learning from you. And, work is a big part of your life, but what, also intrigues me about you is, education, what you're doing in Newark. I'd love you to talk a little bit about that. We know you love food and restaurants and cuisine.
Yeah.
So, but let's talk about like how you're giving back. It's amazing. It's not a little thing. It's a gigantic thing. Why don't you let the audience know what you're doing? And obviously, as you know, we love Newark as well. We have a big commitment to that, the Newark as well.
So, I mean, I describe the things that I like doing, except for the one that is like my greatest passion, alongside of my wife and kids. And I really believe in helping, working with kids in urban settings. A program in Atlanta, a series of programs in Atlanta and Newark, and the one I probably spend the most time on is called North Star Academy in Newark, which is a almost full-time job. And we have 14 schools. And the schools, I joined North Star. We were I think I've been chair for 18 years or so.
Wow.
We were one school. Cory Booker was on our board, and I got to know Cory, and still a friend today. And I don't know why I saw it. The difference we can make. And I just got lucky. And I was going to join the board of the Harlem Children's Zone. I was going to get involved in the Harlem Children's Zone. And I said, I'd love to do something in New Jersey. I live in New Jersey. And I got involved in this school. And I'll tell you, when you go to graduations and you watch, families that have never had anybody go on to college, and you watch the success that these, however they define success, you watch how the success these kids are having. I think our schools are the best schools in the country. I literally think if we're not the best charter school system, we're up there. And, it's really neat watching, watching how well these kids can do. And listen, I think it's a great injustice in this country. I think our education system is broken for a lot of people, and I think they don't get a chance to succeed. And you watch these kids that graduate going to Harvard, Brown, Yale, Penn. It's super exciting. And by the way, we've hired a number of them, and I think has been tremendous. So you realize, and including the programs in Atlanta, we started this thing called Graduation Generation. We work with Emory and the community schools in the city of Atlanta. And, you watch with a little bit of, help in terms of tutoring, healthcare, mentoring, programs for them to see what college is like. And, you see how these kids, similar in my life, and this is part of why I've gotten involved in it. Like, it takes a little bit of motivation. And if you see the ball starting to roll downhill, these kids start to see the ball rolling downhill. We've brought in a bunch of students here for intern programs or for classes, and teach them about investing. And then all of a sudden they go back and they enjoy math. And then all of a sudden the ball is rolling downhill for them. So anyway, it's like anything in life.
It's a little full circle. Rick, you're talking about yourself almost, like how it's your own story, right? You needed that push too. Totally. I think what you're doing is tremendous. How many students are in the system, school system?
Newark, we have 6,000 kids. So
wow.
12%, 13% of the city of Newark.
Wow.
So it's grown quite a bit. Sometimes it's not always politically favorable to charter schools growing, but the success has been extraordinary, and not because of anything I've done. We have incredible directors and teachers, et cetera, who who are motivated. It's funny. You come in every day and invest, and people are motivated to generate return and make money, and those people are motivated to teach kids. And you watch how powerful it can be. So no, it's a very cool.
That's terrific.
How you're putting the time in, including I sign off on every check at the school writes, and it takes a ton of time. But anyway, it's really cool. You sit at graduate. I brought my kids to these graduations, and it's like there's not a dry eye in the graduation. It's very cool.
I love that. Good for you. And you've been doing it a long time. It feels like whatever you commit to, you're like all in, like you're all in Rick, right? That should be your nickname. I love that. And then, a little bit on the lighter side, we got food, like restaurants. So I know you love that sort of industry. Anything you want to discuss about your food endeavors?
Yeah, no, I got involved in a few restaurants, and helped fund them. I certainly can't cook, but I helped fund them, and we're developing more of these restaurants in Long Island City and Florida and in Morristown, New Jersey. And I think the world is changing quite a bit. I think the world is evolving. Some of this is post-COVID, that you had this incredible demand for goods. You needed new furniture, computer, stereo, car. And now, now there's a transition taking place to people want experiences. And by the way, I don't think it's just a post-COVID development. I think there is an extraordinary evolution of millennials and beyond that really want to be out with friends and experiences, and are less concerned about, I need the next new car or TV or whatever, or computer, or whatever it is. But I really believe that there's a durable dynamic to travel, leisure, restaurants. And I think people really enjoy, particularly if it's priced right, that people really enjoy being out and enjoying themselves and having a good meal with friends and family. So I know I find it a really cool business. So
when we're seeing it, right? We're seeing all new franchises, open, all new concepts open. I agree with you. I think the younger generations care more about brand. What do you stand for? Uniqueness, experience. It's not like you said, a car, yes, would they like to have a car that maybe doesn't, need gas? There's all that going on too, which I think is good too. But they really, you got to stand for something and have a brand, which I think is opening up the opportunity for all these new businesses, ideas. And, I think that's what's exciting about, life and being in business and being in a country that, that happens all the time.
And I've been pretty blown away. Like when I came in on Wall Street in the industry, it was all about, what could I do to make my fortune, as it were, or, what could I do to get ahead personally? I've been pretty blown away by the the newer younger generation of what do you stand for, your principles, enjoying myself in life. And by the way, I think that's really healthy. And
I do too. I do too. It's evolution, right? Like we better evolve and not, always be what we were. So I think that's great. Listen, for the New Jersey crowd, why don't we tell them what restaurant it is? So at least maybe you can get some new customers.
So I'm involved in 1776 by David Burke,
which I hear is killing it. It's hard even to get in.
I have to go. I'm only an investor in it. And Pig Beach that's in Long Island City in Florida, in West Palm. But those
I visited those. It's a must go to visit. The food's awesome. So where you got, what is it, in Queen? Where's the Pig Beaches?
Yeah, in Queens and Long Island City and in West Palm Beach, Florida.
I love it.
They're fun. They're really fun. They're priced right. I mean, you get out of there for, pretty cheap, and they're fun.
So Rick, I want to just thank you so much for doing this. Your humility, your drive. You're just an all-around great guy. I'm so glad that we're friends and we know each other, and everyone's going to really enjoy this episode. Rick Rieder, thanks for being here.
Thanks, Sean. No, it was a blast. Thanks for doing it. It was a pretty easy conversation.
Yeah, it should be, right? It's all good and fun.
So,
thanks.
Thanks, man.